Preface. For the mass of believers who profess Islam throughout the world, the Quran is something more than a creed. It is preeminently the book, a book of religious doctrine, of civil and criminal law, a book of social and ceremonial codes. The revelations it contains exert their influence even upon the political life of the states, since they prescribe the imperious necessity of a common defense against the infidels. Well, Islam doesn't call people pagan, infidel, heathen, and of the propagation of Islam. The full signification thereof is to be found in verse 185 of Surah 11. It has been revealed to serve as a criterion between good and evil. So, everything that's evil and ignorant, you can find it condemned in the Quran, and everything that's good and true, you can find it supported in Quran in one way or another, right? Although it may not have the same cardinal importance for non-Muslims, the fact remains that it cannot be ignored any more than one can ignore the Bible and the Vedas, Aristotle, and Plato. Its importance is such as to give it an urgent claim on the attention of those who are in direct relation with the peoples of Islam. We certainly acknowledge the extraordinary importance of Al-Quran, but if it does not occupy its rightful place at our libraries, the reason thereof is to be found in the very difficult research for a precise point of documentation requiring much sustained attention. In fact, the classification of the suwar, plural for a chapter, is not determined by the object of the revelations, neither by their chronological sequence, nor by the place where they occurred, but solely by the length of the text, which is not true. There's a lot of the procedure being compared with the stichometrical classification of certain Christian texts doesn't pan out, because the length up and down towards the end, you have a bunch of chapters that are shorter, and then you have a chapter that's longer than several before it, and that just doesn't make sense. But you find both the Shia and the Sunni have an immense number of references indicating that everything was according to the order that the prophet said. And if you go over it in Arabic, a lot of this becomes apparent, that you can't put this somewhere else. You can't arrange it by chronological sequence of revelation and all that. In the same chapter, the verses often seem to us without connection with the preceding idea. The repetitions are frequent, and the reiteration of local historical happenings, which had their importance at the time of the first preachings, are now matters of subordinate interest. Finally, certain verses have been abrogated by latter revelations, and are likely, if they are not severed out in the translation, to hold forth as valid certain precepts totally irrelevant to Muslim orthodoxy. Though much can be said in praise of the translations in the French language, they have not done away with all these drawbacks. There's a few parts that people say that the French translations do better than any of the other ones. And I've heard comparisons with other European languages and Eastern languages. There were thousands of translations into Urdu. And I would suspect, if you were to look at that more objectively, probably Urdu is the language that it's been done the best with, if not Farsi. In fact, with the exception of the booklets in which alone are grouped the verses of a poetical strain, and which only set off a single feature of Al-Quran, the authors have reproduced in its entirety the original text with its traditional classification. Moreover, some of them, in order to keep close to the Arabic text tend to make this somewhat obscure. As it is, we should like to draw attention to the recent translation published by M. Mercier, a distinguished Arabic scholar, professor at the School of Oriental Languages in Paris, who breaks with the traditional arrangement of the chapters and sets them out in a more rational order without interfering with the ordinary sequence of the verses. Again, if you pay attention to it, there's nothing irrational about the order. It's just, as taught that it's put down. But they're trying to think of the Bible where you have Genesis to Revelation as an alleged sequence, but historically doesn't always line up either. And it's not like the teachings have this method of momentum of change or whatever that ends up towards Revelation. So the merits of this innovation avail to fix the date of the sequence of revelations and furnish an invaluable aid to our comprehension of the sense and opportuneness thereof. But it is still somewhat too discreet to hold the attention of any but the specialists. Now, the present conjectures seem to call more than ever for a wide diffusion of Al-Quran. Islamic countries, and by that they just mean Muslim majority countries, have become one of the clues, and not the least important, of international problems. And this, for want of reliable and enlightened information, leaves many riddles unsolved throughout Al-Quran. Only is the soul of Islam to be understood. And so, it should serve a useful purpose in a common cause to facilitate and extend its knowledge by means of a translation more congenial to our Western ways of thinking. Such alone shall be the aim of our work. In our endeavor to attain this, we have, on the one hand, severed out those verses which are repetitive, are similar to others, containing historical facts without any actual import, are abrogated by latter verses. Well, by abrogated, the Quran doesn't contradict, it just has other details. And on the other hand, by grouping under a single title the verses relating to the same subject, and which are found scattered throughout the chapters of the original text. Moreover, we thought it might be interesting to reproduce together with the English version the Arabic text of each verse, and for non-Arabists, its phonetic transcription in Latin characters. The Arabic text will render possible its confrontation with the translation. And that, in a way, lends credence for two things. One, the appearance and the possible sounding out can be compared. And we also have, people can check the meaning easier to see how accurate is, how accurate the translation is. To read Al-Quran aloud, the phonetic transcription will show the reading style in use in Morocco, the so-called style of Warsh. Uthman bin Sa'id Warsh, an Egyptian scholar who lived in Alexandria in the 8th century. The recitation, as one knows, is akin to a psalmody, the rhythm and intonation of which emphasis the poetic style of the revelations. Finally, the sentences, which are too concise to be translated literally, have been interpreted according to the rendering of the majority of Moroccan scholars. These interpretations are also founded on the authority of a commentary known by the name of Tafsir al-Jalalain of Jalal ad-Din Ash-Shayuti. I'm going based on the transliteration here. Jalal ad-Din al-Mahali also. This new exposition does not reproduce the whole of Al-Quran, but all that should be known about the Quran. Well, I don't think anybody, if they were honest about any breaking up of selected chapters, that there wasn't something else that their interest would be pointed out with other verses. Those who would like an integral documentation are referred to the above-mentioned work of M. Mercier, which marks an epoch in the bibliography of France. Our translation is intended mainly for European Arabist pupils, but it is our wish that it will also appeal to the many who are desirous of understanding the East and the Muslim peoples. With this object in view, we think it might be useful to relate briefly the conditions in which the birth of Islam took place and the relations which it can display with other religions. Al-Quran was revealed at the beginning of the 7th century of our era. Arabia, the Prophet's native land, was then in the throes of religious controversies which, along its borders, also impassioned Syria, Armenia, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. Jews, idolaters, and other polytheists, Christians, rent by rabid sectarian antagonisms, lived there side by side. And let's not forget the Sabians and the what we call Zoroastrians. The Christians principally were split by sequels of heresies, which 3 councils had failed to eradicate. The Council of Nicaea, 325, for the Arians. 1. The Council of Ephesus, 431 of the Common Era, for the Nestorians. 2. The Council of Chalcedon, 451, for the Eutychian Monophysites. 3. Minds were troubled by this plurality of religious systems, and it was in the thick of uneasy consciences that Islam was born. Now, Islam is just the Arabic word for surrendering to God, so the idea that Islam was born doesn't make any sense, if we put it in a particular point of human history. We know that Muhammad had undoubtedly a knowledge of the clashing theologies of the times. His journeys with the trading caravans in Arabian countries had afforded opportunities for his presence at controversies which brought into conflict the defenders of each doctrine, and legend even has it that he had made a long stay at the hermitage of a Christian ascetic, Bahira. But this knowledge, this initiation, one might say, gives but an insufficient explanation of the numerous similitudes to be found in the Bible and even Al-Quran. There happens to be half the contradictions between Quran and Bible as there is between Bible and Bible. Well, I mean, there's more than twice that, but even some Christian texts admit that, but they can't find a contradiction in the Quran. For Islam, the mission of Muhammad is placed on the divine plane. Muhammad, messenger of God, is a prophet who is linked directly to the prophets of the scriptures. Because there's a belief about one religion, not religions being founded and somehow being okay. Muhammad is but a prophet before whom other prophets passed away. Al-Quran, Surah 3, ayat 144. Ayat is the word for verse. And Al-Quran itself is but the sequel of the other revealed books. Before it, Al-Quran was the book of Moses. It confirms the latter in Arabic language. Al-Quran, Surah 46, ayat 12. For the Arians, Jesus is neither God nor man. He is a subordinate divinity. For the Nestorians, Jesus is the incarnate Word of God, Son of Mary. Mary is Mother of Christ, but she is not Mater Dei. For the Monophysites, I don't have the Greek here or the Latin. We're having the English version of these terms. Jesus is solely God in the guise of a human body. For the Christians, it is known Jesus is at the same time God and man. And, well, it's believed. And remember, in Latin, when you have a C, it's the same sound as the K. In the hierarchy of prophets, the place given to Jesus, Messiah, Word of God, cast into Mary, Koran, Surah 4, ayat 171, Virgin and Mother, assumes a particular significance. You know, because if it was an immaculate conception, then God's not the Father, right? In point of fact, Islam did more than simple overthrow the last idols of a belated paganism, and calling non-Christian religion pagan when Christianity is just the same type of religion, basically. It's another type of Mithraism. It also transcended all the dividing schisms to oppose the revelations of its one God to the three fundamental dogmas of the Church, of the Apostles, and of the Councils. And I agree with the LDS in as far as them saying that those weren't the same churches. And paganism is, for example, the Roman practice of dividing lands into farming and working plots, particularly conquered lands. The Greeks and the Romans would do this, and this was called, it's the root of our word paganism. So it had nothing to do with religious differences or anything. Same thing with heaths, The mystery of the Trinity, say not Trinity, cease from asserting it. It were better for you. God is only one God. Quran Surah 4, verse 191. The mystery of the incarnation. God never took to himself a son, and no other God was with him. Al-Quran Surah 23, ayat 91. The mystery of the redemption. They never killed him, nor crucified him, although, as such, he appeared to them. Al-Quran Surah 4, ayat 156 to 158. O ye people of the Holy Scriptures, do not exceed in your religion, nor say about God aught save the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, the Son of Mary, is but the messenger of God, his word cast into Mary, and a spirit coming from him. Al-Quran Surah 4, ayat 171. Well, that doesn't answer the question of redemption from Islam. It just addresses part of the Christian idea of the death by atonement that conflicts 8 ways with the tonic idea of animal sacrifice. The new religion held forth, in respect of Christian abstractions, a more natural theological doctrine, more within the range of human intelligence. Its paradise, taken literally, was a more striking imagery of earthly felicities. Its rites were better suited to the possibilities of the place and times. Islam had guidance for an international age. It wasn't limited to Arabian situations. But like the Bible talks about some material stuff that's not universal, right? Islam could rally all the beliefs, and in verse 64 of Surah 3 is held forth the secret hope of the Prophet. Say, O ye people of the book, rally to a formula which be common among us, that we will not adore other than God, nor nor associate aught with him, nor take together any other Lord but God. If they refuse, bear witness that we embrace the religion of that one God. And, literally we submit to God. Islam is to submit, to surrender. And, of course, the invitation is to God alone. This great dream, this wondrous dream, was not realized, but for us, there is still extant the written testimony of its moral loftiness and exceptional spirituality. Al-Quran. Henry Mercier